Okay.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot for being here. Great to see so many people in a room together after such a long time. Uh, Over the next 15 minutes, I would like to leave you with just 2 or 3 key things, right? I'll talk a little about what are some of the broad trends that are shaping e-commerce in the country. I'll talk a little about the rise of commerce advertising, right? And then I'll talk a little about how brands can create impact through Flipkart ads. Uh, Maybe this is something that all of you are aware of, but just recapping that we have the third largest online shopper base globally, right? Behind the China and US. And these numbers are only growing further, right? So the overall, let's say the retail economy is going to be $1 trillion anytime, right? And e-commerce is still single-digit percentage. The headroom to grow is tremendous, right? If you look at some factors that are really propelling this growth, think of 3 or 4 things. The first is obviously cheap and ubiquitous data. Everyone has data today. The second is handsets. All of us are accessing internet on our devices today. The third, and perhaps the most important thing, is the rise of the middle class, right? So if you look at data back in 2005, you'll see a pyramid, right? Back in 2018 also, there wasn't a very pronounced bulge, so to say, in the middle. There were about 150 million middle-income households back in 2018. That number is set to grow to 300 million by 2030, right? As income levels are rising, so will the propensity to purchase online. If you were to look at any market globally, right, e-commerce has followed a very predictable kind of a trajectory. The first stage is of cautious early adoption, right, where there will be small number of people who start to latch on to e-commerce. The second phase is massification, and that is where we are at this point of time, right? The overall growth for e-commerce is really being turbocharged by tier 2 and tier 3. So if you look at most new customers who are now coming online, or most new customers who are starting to shop online, 80% of them are coming from tier 2 and beyond, right? And there are some very interesting trends that we are noticing. Typically, one would think that there might be a difference in behavior as far as purchases in metros and tier 2 and beyond might be there. Not really. We are observing no change whatsoever. In fact, the average selling price for goods in tier 2 and metros is just the same. For categories like personal care, the ASP is actually higher in tier 2 and beyond, right? So really it is Bharat which is turbocharging growth for e-commerce. And I think building for Bharat is what we do well. And we've clustered that into 4 key buckets, right? I think voice, vernacular, video is something all of you are aware of. So think of voice, think of vernacular, think of social commerce, and think of live commerce, right? It's not just about creating content, but it is about creating content that adds meaning to the shopping that the customers want to do. I'm not going to spend too much time on voice. I guess all of you are aware of it. Growing traction. We are seeing more than 10% of users that we have starting to use voice. Similarly on vernacular, right? We are now available in 11 languages. We're seeing more than 5 to 6 million people on a daily basis coming to our destination and using vernacular. I think social commerce is a big opportunity. It's a new opportunity. We launched Shopsy, a couple of months back, expected to hit about 100 million users by 2022. And what's very different to see with Shopsy is that we're seeing traction from places or geographies where there were no online shoppers earlier, right? So really reinforcing the fact that when you get someone in between where there's a trust, the adoption suddenly starts to surge. These are just two new things that we're doing. We started video commerce recently. Again, I don't have to spend time with this audience on what video commerce is, but we're doing something interesting there, right? We built out a haggle bot, which essentially means that every customer can actually speak to the influencer or connect with the influencer and get the right price for whatever they want to buy, right? So just another way of getting the customer really involved and engaged in the purchases that they're making. And we're also doing feeds, which is largely about creating an opportunity for consumers to buy the look that celebrities might be wearing, right? So this largely is about some factors or dimensions that are shaping e-commerce and are really propelling the growth of e-commerce. I'll dive now into commerce advertising, right? Now, again, just taking a step back, if you think about it, traditional shopping funnels have collapsed, right? Earlier, you would expect awareness to be built. For example, you'll see something on television, maybe you'll see a coupon in a newspaper, then you'll walk into a store, and then you will make a purchase, right? I think those shopping funnels do not hold true anymore. Digital obviously accelerated the collapse of shopping funnels, but destinations like e-commerce are actually pushing it to a different zone altogether, where the consumer does not need to go to multiple surfaces. The consumer is in a single destination where they can fulfill the need for product discovery. They can deep dive into consideration by comparing various products or looking at features across various products. There are multiple affordability options that commerce platforms and someone like us is able to provide, and then eventually convert to, right? So really, if you were to think about what is happening today, the shopping funnel from what you knew earlier to how it is now has changed significantly. And if anything, a platform like ours is accelerating that journey. The second thing, and it's a very important thing that is happening now, is if we were to think of all of us as consumers, right, our behavior on search has changed significantly, right? So today, when you're searching for food, you'll perhaps go to a Zomato or a Swiggy. When you're searching for services, you'll perhaps go to an urban company. When you're looking for music, you'll go to a Spotify or a Ghana. And when you're searching for products, you'll come to a destination such as Flipkart. Globally, these numbers are manifesting in very large numbers. So in the US, close to 70% of product queries have already migrated to commerce platforms. In India, that number is anywhere between 30 to 35% right now, and our expectation is that more than 50% of product queries are going to migrate to commerce platforms. And as users are moving, so will the brands. I think this is something that we keep on thinking about, or at least talking about, if you were to really simplify the market and think of it on these axes, where you have search and display on one side, and apps and commerce on the other side, what you see is that when you think of the app side, it is your app stores, the OS, that kind of holds the consumer. When you think about search, obviously there are search engines, horizontal search engines, etc. And then you have social, you have display, you have multiple other forms. Where does commerce sit in? I think it sits in two places. I spoke about product searches on commerce and how they're rising. So think of that dimension where it becomes imperative for brands to be present on. And the second is also discovery through display and video, right? That is where commerce advertising sits in. And it is something that will continue to be important, not just now, but for the next very many years. This is again important. There's always a question on what is the top of the funnel, how many people are actually shopping online. So, if you look at active internet users, perhaps we are anywhere between 600 to 700 million, right? And this will grow to perhaps 900 million in the next 4 or 5 years. But if you look at service transactors and product transactors, that number is growing at a very, very rapid pace, right? So when it comes to product transactions, it will be close to a 400 million in the next 3 years. Add the service transactors to it, the number actually looks more than 500 million. And I don't think there's any brand that cannot be built with the scale that commerce advertising is already at or will be going to. And you know, these changes are manifesting in very, very large numbers now, right? I think Sandeep also mentioned that digital is larger. You know, there are various estimates that are out there, but our estimate is that digital advertising in the country will be anywhere between 48 to 55% by 2025. Last year, the market was already at 35,000 crores. That is digital. And within that, commerce advertising this year is going to be north of $1 billion. Actually, significantly higher than $1 billion, right? Now, every time we think about opportunities, we think of you know, video as the next big thing, etc., right? But think about it, commerce advertising all up in the country is going to be more than $1 billion this year. It is not something that is going to unravel or manifest in the future. Commerce advertising is here and now. Just talking very quickly on some things that you can do with us. See, what we do well is understand customer journeys, right? So users take a lot of action on Flipkart. So they'll search for products, they'll browse through multiple products, they'll read ratings and reviews, right? At times they'll add things to cart, maybe make the purchase immediately. At times they'll come back later and then make the purchase. There are people who will use cash, there are people who will use credit, there are people who will use affordability options, right? We understand all of this. We understand what the consumer is doing, and we are able to churn all of these actions into creating some insights, right? What you see is our ability to maybe create some cohorts like young parents, price preference, etc., and many more. Essentially, the point that I'm trying to leave with you is that understanding of customer journeys is imperative in case you want to intersect and converse with them at the right time as far as their shopping journeys are concerned. This is important. We talk of intent being bandied. You know, we understand customer intent. It is not singular, right? Customer intent actually is a spectrum, right? So think about it. There are times when the customer intent is very strong and pronounced. So for example, you search for a handset. We know that you're looking to buy a handset, right? How is it that you surface content that is relevant to the kind of discovery that you wanted to do? That may be an example of strong intent. Latent intent would be taking off from the same example, your need to perhaps buy a mobile case and a cover, right? How do you ensure that relevant content around latent intent is being shown to you? The third is nascent intent. You know, an example could be in case you bought for toys, maybe children's book is something that you might also want to think about. And the last and a very important point is new intent. There's a certain platform serendipity that needs to be created, right? How do you ensure that customers discover what they do not know exists, right? So when you think of intent as a spectrum, it becomes essential to identify what is it that you want to communicate with the customer and where is it that you want to communicate with the customer. And I think just understanding that intent allows us to create opportunities which we internally refer to as thus, which is disruptive, unique, and scalable. So I won't be talking through the entire suite of offerings that we have, but some things that the team has been working on. What you see on the leftmost of the screen is a product finder kind of an ad. There are obviously multiple search opportunities that are available on the platform. There are multiple display opportunities that are available on the platform. But now you can do rich search ads. You can do ads in 11 vernacular languages. You can even do ads on product page which are really congruent to the customer journey. And this is for all brands that retail on our platform, even for brands that do not retail on the platform. This is something that I think Monaz and team had done a couple of months back, where Skoda kind of built a brand store on Flipkart, which got them a tremendous amount of traction. Even something like sampling, if you were to think about it, today's sampling as an exercise or as an industry is broken because there is no consumer feedback loop. You send out your samples, you really don't get to know what has happened to the sample. You do not know whether the consumer is actually interested in making a repeat purchase. We've actually created opportunities whereby this is something that can be extremely targeted. This is something from where you can trigger a feedback loop. This is something from where you can actually enable the next purchase that the customer wants to do in case you want to incentivize them or give them a discount, right? So, and the last thing is how we've been building on what we take off deck, right? So you'll hear about it soon. I won't be talking much about it today, but there is an opportunity that we've created where brands can run performance ads off platform, and you can bring them to wherever you're retailing. It could be on our platform, it could be on a brand.com, and that is an opportunity that has actually been created. In a couple of days, we'll be taking this live, right? I think I'm down to the last slide, just talking about summarizing, all that I spoke about. So we know about the 3 Vs, we know about live commerce. That is going to enable the next set of commerce users and commerce advertising. Going back to the point I made about the scale of commerce advertising, like I said, this year is going to be north of $1 billion. It is here and now. And it is significant to be building brands at scale. And this part of digital adtech will grow faster than any other part on digital for the next 5 or 7 years, if not more. And whereas we are concerned, we are building opportunities that are disruptive, unique, and scalable. Thanks a lot for your time, guys. Lovely audience. In case anyone has any queries, the team is here. Sudarshan, Tathagat, feel free to reach out to them. But thanks a lot for your time. And I'm sorry to be keeping you from lunch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sankalp, for that very invigorating.